I'm Yumei Wang with the State Department of Geology, and I'll be talking about earthquake hazards. I'll be going over ground shaking, fault rupture, soil amplification, liquefaction, lateral spreading, landslides, and coastal tsunamis. In Oregon, we have a number of faults: the Cascadia subduction zone fault off the coast, as well as crustal faults throughout the state of Oregon. The photo on the right with the yellow line indicates the Portland Hills Fault, which goes right through downtown Portland. In fact, it created the West Hills. And this is a map indicating the ground motions that are expected if that fault produces a magnitude 6.8 earthquake. And a close-up of this map, you can see that the ground motions would be quite high. This is the level of ground motions where poorly built buildings would have a lot of problems. Now, fault rupture is when the earthquake actually propagates up to the ground surface and ruptures the ground. So here's an example of the fault rupture on the San Andreas Fault in the 1906 earthquake, and also a couple of other structures that failed because there was fault rupture. Now, the earthquake is usually centered around 10 to 15 kilometers at depth. And so when you have an earthquake, it doesn't always rupture the surface of the earth. Ground shaking amplification is when you have certain types of softer soils that increase the ground shaking levels. Soft soils like at estuaries and rivers can often increase the level of ground shaking. And this is an example from the 1989 World Series earthquake in California, where this freeway structure failed because it was inadequately designed and it was exposed to amplified ground shaking. Soil liquefaction can occur where you have loose sandy soils that are water saturated. If you shake them in an earthquake, you can actually increase the pore water pressures. Those pore water pressures need to escape, and sometimes you can create these sand boils that look like little sand volcanoes. In 2001, in the Nisqually earthquake, here are some examples of sand boils at the wildlife refuge. Now, liquefaction can be a real problem if you build your buildings on top of them. This is a building that had severe damage because it was built on liquefiable soils. And where you have liquefaction, you also can likely have lateral spreading, where the ground moves down slope, like any liquid would. So this is actually a picture of me from the 2007 Kashiwazaki earthquake in Japan. And you can see that the lateral spreading can be quite extensive. This was about 1,000 feet, and the vertical drop was over 5 feet. This is an example of lateral spreading in the 2001 Nisqually earthquake. Now, landslides can also occur during earthquakes. Landslides often occur during storms and are water related, but if you have earthquake shaking, these marginally stable slopes can also slide. And in large earthquakes, you can have thousands of landslides. This is one in Japan. Another one in Japan, another few in Japan. This one blocked the coastal highway. And last hazard I'd like to talk about are tsunamis. When you have a Cascadia subduction zone earthquake, you would generate a near-field tsunami that will flood low-lying coastal towns. This is a wave that came in Thailand in the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. That tsunami killed about 250,000 people. The difference between wind waves and tsunami waves is that wind waves behave nicely, they come into shore and then they recede back, whereas tsunami waves have long wavelengths and they can flood inland for quite a long distance, depending on the topography. This is a place in Thailand. I visited there right after the 2004 tsunami, and this entire community, including the bridge, were washed away from the tsunami. Another example from the 2004 tsunami is in Indonesia, which was point blank to the tsunami. This community here, unfortunately, was decimated. The land level subsided and the tsunami came in, and washed away the structures that weren't designed for tsunamis. So these hazards aren't the only hazards that exist from earthquakes, but these hazards, depending on where you are, may cause you problems. Thanks.